There's no question that we've been inundated with a number of electronic devices throughout the past several decades. Nowadays, again, you just look at anyone's home or even on their own person as they might carry a cell phone or perhaps have an iPad or a tablet. Certainly a computer has almost become an expected device in each and every home. And while I think we've all grown in some understanding of these technological devices and let's say even the benefits that they can provide and maybe the ease of living that they can bring. There's an element of, I think, each of them, at least I know for my part, that is hard to grasp completely as to how they work and how things go really together. I think, for instance, back several decades ago when VCRs first came in existence, you can often remember the story how there'd be the father at home was going crazy trying to figure out how to link the whole system up and then only had to call in their 7 or 8 year old child who would immediately go and press the right buttons, and before you know it, it was in action. Children seem to grasp these things so much quicker. As a matter of fact, think back to the days when you were growing up, or at least I know when I was growing up. Much of what we learned came through rote learning. Began with the ABCs, perhaps the multiplication tables, even as we were beginning to take hold of those first math lessons. It was also true of many of the religious things that we became to know, things about our faith. I couldn't help but think about that today as we hear at our first reading from the book of Exodus, the listing of the 10 Commandments. Sister Mary Robert, my second grade teacher, a wonderful sister of Notre Dame for whom a community of religious women who I respect greatly for the education that they gave me, really had us apply ourselves to learning those 10 Commandments. But much like even those electronic devices that we carry around or have in our homes, it's one thing to know about them, it's another whole thing to understand them and how it works. And that thought came to mind even in terms of, again, matters of our faith, things like the 10 Commandments, as I've reflected upon the words of Jesus to his disciples in today's gospel from Matthew. He talks about the parable of the sower and how this scene is thrown, that you could say, far and wide, landing in various places. Jesus pointed out that, again, the seed found itself on paths where people were, again, able to accept this seed, but not understand it. And then through temptations or what have you, obviously it never took root within their hearts. And without going through each of the dimensions of where that seed fell, we eventually hear, though, about the seed that falls on the rich soil, where again it was understood, heard, and accepted, and indeed was able to bear fruit. And so when I do think back of those 10 Commandments that I learned so many years ago, and I'm sure many of you as well, we realize it wasn't important in learning them and coming to know about them, but there's always that lifelong work to come and grow an understanding of them. Again, an ability that is presented to us through the very grace of God to make that happen. As we're appreciative of the things that have made our life easier, to some degree or another, things like the electronic gadgets that so many of us now carry with us or have in our homes, so too we continue our own journey in coming to grow an understanding of what also has been given to us by our loving God by way of his law, and also the ability through his grace to again truly see that the grace that God has provided for us helps that seed of faith to grow in our hearts, to make ever more his presence in our own individual lives, and by virtue of that, be able to be instruments of his presence and of his peace within the world that we live.